Okay, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us. As we begin, we'd like to start first with our land acknowledgement. So we wish to recognize that our work takes place on the traditional Indigenous territories across Ontario. We also wish to acknowledge that our head and corporate offices in Toronto and Ottawa are located on the traditional Indigenous territory of the Huron-Wendat, Haudenosaunee, and most recently, the territory of the Mississauga of the New Credit, and on the unceded Algonquin Anishinaabe territory. Today, Toronto and Ottawa and all the other cities we serve are still home to Indigenous people, and we are very grateful to have the opportunity to meet and work on this territory. Jean, over to you.
Thank you. Alicia, next slide. Thank you again, Alia, and welcome again, everyone, for participating in our event today. Just wanted to talk about our organization, who we are, what we do quickly for those of you who might not be familiar with Alterna Savings. Alterna is made up of Alterna Savings and Credit Union Limited and wholly owned subsidiary Alterna Bank. Individuals and organizations who hold accounts at the credit union are members. This means that you have a direct say in how the organization is governed. Profits made go back into our community programs like grants or award-winning microfinance program and better interest rates for our members. So thank you for being here. We're just gonna go through some Zoom etiquette right now, just to ensure that we all have a wonderful and noise-free event. We're gonna place everyone in mute mode. Please feel free to put your questions in the chat room for this presentation. Please indicate your questions by raising your hand and having some specific questions. Questions will be addressed towards the end of the event or during our breakout room sessions. And if you choose to share this event, please use our hashtags Alterna Impact and choose, sorry, I can't see the other one, but hashtag IWD 2021. I also like to say, just for technical reasons, if you'd like to be off camera, please do so. That allows the bandwidth to be a little bit stronger. So that would be greatly appreciated. So next, we'll have our first speaker, but before we do, I want to get into welcoming everyone again. As you may know, Monday was International Women's Day. I truly believe every day throughout the year, we always need to celebrate the resilience and the achievement of women. So thank you for being here today, and thank you for being present. Today, we want to do a deep dive and explore the theme of overcoming the barriers of patriarchy for women and women entrepreneurs. Patriarchy at its most basic is a system in which men hold the power and women are largely excluded from it. Within our society and business institution, this manifests in various ways, from masculine voices dominating in meetings in terms of time, volume, and higher esteem to women and non-binary people. Often being regulated to undervalued work, such as taking notes, booking calendars, taking care of others, getting food and drinks, and of course, the most obvious and painful example of women's work being financially valued less than men. Because we live in a patriarchal society, women face a number of challenges and barriers. We want to identify how these impact women's lives, any challenges or obstacles we face, and how we overcome them and find greater success in the business arena. We will delve into the scope of these barriers in terms of leadership, entrepreneurship, careers, family support systems, and provide perspectives and point of view from our speakers today on their experience and on our own. We will hear from all the participants in our breakout room session as well when they have the opportunity to speak with our panelists. And our panelists will share their respective information and their leadership roles going forward. Just want to let you know, we do have three fantastic guest speakers today. Each speaker has been assigned a few questions ahead of time on certain issues and have about approximately 10 minutes to speak. Afterwards, we will go into breakout rooms where we will have the opportunity to discuss these themes much broader. You can share any stories of encouragement or guidance. You can just listen. That's if where you're most comfortable. This event is a safe space for sharing meaningful insights with each other that can be put to use in our everyday lives, whether it be personally or professionally. So thank you for being present. Our distinguished speakers today are remarkable, resilient, and respected women in their own rights and field. Our first speaker today is Rosal Al-Rubel. Rosal founded Parkdale Center in early 2017 to fill the accessibility and inclusivity gap to innovation, tech, and entrepreneurship, especially for underrepresented groups, such as women, newcomers, and those from low-income backgrounds. Before Parkdale Center, Russell co-founded the Writing Project, a student publishing platform in the US by educators and students to amplify student voice and to help students become better writers. During that time, Russell worked as an educator in residence, supporting community engagement at a design thinking agency that works with organizations on strategy and design. Russell teach English composition and literature at Ryerson University and Seneca College for a combined 10 years experience. She is a 3 times published author, keynote speaker, and advocate for equity and inclusion. Russell recently was named one of Canada's 2020 Top 100 Most Powerful Women for WXN Awards. Welcome, Russell, and over to you.
Thank you so much for the invite, Jean. I really appreciate it. I wanted to first start off with thanking the Alterna team, Jean, Susan, Alia, and Alicia for the invite and for you putting together such an important event to celebrate our accomplishments and come together and discuss this really important issue. I want to just share a little bit about our work at Parkdale Center and our partnership with Alterna Savings. Parkdale Center is a not-for-profit incubator and accelerator. We support entrepreneurs to start a business at the early stage. About 85% of our entrepreneurs identify as women. And we work with Alterna to provide access to microfinancing capital to start your business after the completion of our programs. So they're a very important partner of ours, and we work very closely together to support entrepreneurs through their business challenges. So I think this topic is obviously very broad. It's very big, and I have a lot of feelings about it, and I'm gonna just share a bit of my learnings over the past couple of years. As Jean mentioned, I launched the center back in 2017, but before then I was in the entrepreneurship since 2012. So just being in that landscape and having that experience in different ecosystems and seeing how the ecosystems and organizations operate as a woman of color, as a Muslim woman, that has kind of exposed me to a lot of patriarchy. And I'd like to share some of my learnings with you all today. And I'm really looking forward to the breakout sessions, because if anything kind of sticks with you or resonates with you, please feel free to bring that to the conversation. So patriarchy obviously exists in entrepreneurship more than any other sector, I believe, that I've been part of in my past. So I was part of education, digital media, it's a huge barrier for many women. The one thing I want to remind everyone listening in today, and I'm sure you all know this, is that patriarchy is not only upheld by men, but historically it has been upheld by women ourselves. It's an experience that is felt globally for women, no matter where you're from, what country you're from, and your background. And that's why it's called International Women's Day, because we all connect on the same level when it comes to patriarchy. And so working to dismantle those structures and barriers is very important for us all to come together and really acknowledge those biases that exist, those biases that we carry forth in our day-to-day. How do we uphold patriarchy ourselves? And so that's something that I wanted to kind of get us started with. The one thing we often talk about when it comes to patriarchy is access to mentorship and a supportive network. So when I launched my business, Parkdale Center and the Writing Project before that, it was always challenging to find someone, a mentor that is going to be able to understand where you're coming from, whether you're a woman of color. Those intersections are really important, because I find that mentors can only identify with you on one thing, but when it comes to those layers of intersex, they can't really relate. So for me, it was really important to have someone that understands those barriers that exist for women in entrepreneurship. One of the things I'm always learning as an entrepreneur as well is to advocate for myself. So to dismantle patriarchy, I think advocating for yourself is one of the number one things that you can do as an entrepreneur. What does that look like? It can come in many different shapes or forms. I think one things that I'm learning is your inner voice has to start with your inner voice. So constantly telling yourself really positive affirmations, the fact that, I can do this, I've got this, I can handle this, and just pushing through those barriers that often exist is very important to build our own confidence and self-esteem. And the other thing that I think is really important, and what I really want to share with other women of color and women entrepreneurs in general who are going through similar hurdles, is to work really hard at not thinking and worrying about what other people think. So that is something that I find a lot of entrepreneurs, whether you're an entrepreneur, and to be honest, whether you're a career professional, we're constantly comparing ourselves to other people. And with social media and everyone being digital and really crafting really perfected narratives of their digital identity, we hardly see the failures. We only see the success. And Roussel, top 100 most powerful women of 2020, and it sounds very glamorous, and parts of it might be, but the other part is nobody hears about all of the hurdles that I had to go through in order to get there. And so for me, it's really important to kind of really not compare myself to other people, and I usually try to really beat my last best score. So I'm not, I don't know if that makes sense. I see a smile there, but it's like, okay, I did that really well. Now I need to top that up. What can I do to make that better? How can I move forward and make that better? And not really focusing on what other organizations are doing and what other people are working towards, because that's not my goal. right? It's important to really focus on your goal and stick to it. I think that's the number one ways that we could overcome patriarchy, because it's patriarchy that tells us you got to do better, you're not good enough, you're you need more, and that's something that we also have to work on kind of dismantling from our inner voice. And then from an entrepreneurship perspective, Jean, please keep me on track with my time because I can go on and on about this. But from an entrepreneurship perspective, I think a lot of women, we tend to confuse customer traction and customer validation as validation for ourselves. So for example, you're launching a business and the business is not really doing too well. You don't have a lot of customers, you don't have a lot of clients. You take that on yourself and think this is because I'm not good enough. This is because I need to work on myself. And so taking that personally is something that we really need to take apart and separate. You're separating your business from who you are as a person. Your business does not define who you are. And I think that's something that can kind of get convoluted as an entrepreneur. And I've gone through it myself because you're really kind of, as you're building a business, it becomes your baby. It becomes part of what you do for a living and who you are. Every single day you live it and breathe it. So it's really hard to separate the two. And I think it's really important for us to work on that. And then a couple of more things I want to share is to also speak your truth. This doesn't come easy, of course, because as you're building a business, you have a brand to uphold, you have an identity that you want to showcase on social media and all of that. But I think as you start to get traction and as you start to kind of find your footing in a space, I think it's important not to lose sight of your authentic self, your values, and who you are. And I think speaking your authentic truth will allow you to actually do your business in the best way that could be, and it'll reach its best potential when you're working from an authentic truth. It doesn't come easy, it doesn't happen overnight, but it comes with a bit of success when you empower yourself to use your voice. I think that's something that, again, we all have to work at. I have a hard time. I was at an anti-racist panel last week, I think Friday, and people talked about anti-racism and anti-Blackness and all of these really kind of uncomfortable topics. But for me, because we're entrepreneurs, I don't really have anything to lose. These people are listening. They're not my funders. Even if they are, I'm gonna tell them where my stance is on these issues, because at the end of the day, you want to align yourself with people who believe in your mission and values. And if those people are not on the same page, then it's their loss. So that's one of the points I also wanted to share. And then I have one more point. Going back to advocating for yourself, I think that's, I just want to define that for a second. So self-advocacy is the ability to articulate one's needs, and you make informed decisions about the circumstance, the environment that you're in. So when you advocate for yourself, you can't do that without understanding the full context. So I need to make that informed decision. How can I go about doing that? So for me, I think one of the number one ways that you can self-advocate while also dismantling patriarchy is to have 3 core pillars. Priorities, set your priorities straight when it comes to your business, identify your goals, and focus. So these 3 pillars have really helped me in kind of making sure that I'm paving a path for myself that is devoid of any voices that I know I don't need to hear. I had to have hard conversations with some of the men that they thought they were my mentors. And I had to tell them, you know what, this is not working, because you will never be walking in my shoes. I don't care if you're an entrepreneur and you've done this and you've raised millions of dollars for your business, but you'd never walk in my shoes, because And so as a result, your advice can apply to myself. So I had to advocate in that way. But at the same time, I've had many advocates who are men who empower my voice, who look out for me. They listen, they understand what my goals are, and they help me get there using their platform. So finding your advocates, your champions, and surrounding yourself with people who believe in your mission is one of the most important things to focus on as an entrepreneur. Know what you want, have an end goal, know who you're talking to. And the last thing is reflect on also your shortcomings and failures. Nobody's perfect. We all could do better. Again, that whole beat my last score. What can I do better? What could I have done better in that conversation? I'm going to get off this call and I'm going to say, what could I have, what else could I have shared with the ladies? How can I have done that? So it's always like kind of revising and reflecting on your actions, and what you can do better is also a good thing to do as an entrepreneur. So I think I'm past my 10-minute mark, right, Jean?
Yes, you are, but you know what? You gave out some great wisdom, some great nuggets. I've been writing so much. I love your quote. I think that's the best hashtag ever. Beat my last best score. I'm certainly going to utilize that one. So thank you so much for that, Russell. And
Thank you so much.
for a breakout room session, I think we can delve a little bit deeper here. So
Definitely.
So our next, we have now a poll question. This is a very interactive event, so we have a poll. So we'd like your input on the poll. And the question is, do you feel you have had impactful mentorship experiences in your life? And it's a yes and a no question. So you have about a minute to answer, and that would be greatly appreciated here. And we'll share the results as well. So stay tuned for that. Great. So the results are 76% of you said yes. So that is a very good thing. And I believe the 24% will be working on, finding those individuals who can be that mentor for you. So, we're always a work in progress, and this is a great way to start. So our next presenter is Rosalind Lockyer, and she's the Chief Executive Officer and founder for Paro Center for Women's Enterprise. So I want to share a little bit about Rosalind before she gets started, if you don't mind. So Rosalind spent 20 years as a teacher, entrepreneur, and community developer. That made Rosalind blatantly aware of systematic issues that kept women from achieving their life's goal. In 1995, she founded the Paro Center for Women's Enterprise, challenging this experience and passion and determination to work for positive change. Today, Paro is recognized as the largest peer lending network in North America and one of the strongest Canadian business development organizations, supporting its unique form of woman-centered social enterprise with 170 plus circles located across Ontario. Rosalind has dedicated her lifetime towards supporting gender equality and building sustainable livelihoods for thousands of women who need it the most. Central to her role as founder and CEO of Paro Center for Women Enterprise, she's also the co-founder of the Women's Economic Council in supporting women who are disadvantaged by intersectionality of poverty, racism, sexism, ageism, and disability. Rosalind is also the treasurer of the International E-Rotary for Social Innovators, Board of Director for Ontario for Women Enterprise Organization of Canada, and Ontario Hub, representative for Women Entrepreneur Knowledge Hub. Recognized for her notable efforts in building Paro, her collaborative approach with particular emphasis on women, Rosalind was called one of the most remarkable social entrepreneurs in the world by the Office of Social Enterprise, METI, Ontario government. She received the prestigious Influential Woman of Northern Ontario Award Public Sector and Woman of the Decade in Community Leadership, the most prestigious award offered by Women's Economic Forum in 2018 in New Delhi, India. This is a remarkable achievement. So with further ado, welcome Rosalind.
So good to be here. It's a great privilege, and I thank everyone for taking the time to be here today because I know how busy women are. And thanks to the Alterna team, Susan, Alicia, and Alia. I appreciate all your efforts to make this happen. It's very important that we get together and talk about this important topic. I must warn you that I'm a little passionate about this topic. I'm going to try to keep myself in control and not be too overbearing about it. But I think it's really important that we recognize where we are as women entrepreneurs, as women leaders in Canada, and the important job that we have to do going forward together. Each woman makes important choices every day for so many things. In her home, in her personal life, in her business, in her workplace, and in her community. You may say she picks her fights. So often she chooses to do something to move forward despite the obstacles, and she faces her fears. She chooses to make an important choice to not agree, to say no, to persist and demand fair treatment. She decides that something is worth fighting for. Sometimes, and don't underestimate this, we have to realize that this is true, especially at home. She decides to do something despite the fact that she may endanger her life. She may lose her job if she's in the workplace, or in the very least, be punished in some way. And I say punish with quotes, because punishment can come in so many forms and not always in a direct way so people can see it. She may be punished in other ways. So it's a brave woman who chooses to lead, to take action, and to be bold, and to lift up her own life and those of other women and girls. Is a woman of courage who chooses to be an entrepreneur. So why is that? And you know, we talked about this a little bit earlier. We talked about patriarchy and how it impacts women. It's patriarchy that becomes cultural norms, societal norms, systems that work against women's entrepreneurship activities and women's general presence in socioeconomic life in general. It impacts everything. The systems for business activity were set up with men in mind. So they're still there, and we're still working to break down the barriers and challenges that are manifested through that. We're making progress, and at least we're talking about it. And but we're not close to where we want to be. This is true for all women entrepreneurs, but more so for Black women, Indigenous women, women with disabilities, and senior women. We still have so much work to do. So how do these realities impact women, and how can we impact women, and how can we work towards change? First of all, we have to do it together. Everyone has to play a part, each and every one of us. Because of these patriarchal systems, women do not have equal access to resources. This becomes blatantly true when you talk about social finance and other kinds of investors. Women don't have the same access. In financing in general, even though there's organizations like Paro and Alterna and other sources that have more flexibility, we still don't have access in the same way as men do. We often don't have appropriate mentors. Their networks are different. Women are paid less in the same sectors, and that manifests itself within as women entrepreneurs as well. And some sectors do not equally include women entrepreneurs, for example, industry, tech, and STEM. Often that's because men are overwhelmingly the decision makers, and they're dominant in economic bodies such as corporate boards and central banks, members of legislature and all levels of government. Patriarchal power relations bring about strong symbolic dimensions that we don't always see, but they manifest themselves to critique, for example, the way a woman does her hair before they talk about what she does, what she accomplished. They may talk about how she dresses, or they may indeed say she's aggressive, whereas a man would be praised for that. And there would be a positive connotation to that kind of behavior. Women's economic contributions can be belittled. They're often belittled. People might say, well, she runs a little business. Bankers may say, well, you need, maybe you need your husband or your father to back up this loan. Women leaders and entrepreneurs often suffer from the psychological and physiological conditions caused by the bulk of unpaid domestic labor and care work, coupled by unreasonable expectations, as I talked to before, and those criticisms, they can dig deep. There is a fear of risk taking from family funds. Women don't like to do it, and often family members may favor others in the family to take risks with the money, but discourage the woman from using family funds. Patriarchal systems and structures may require, when doing business, that if you want to get an investor, for example, I was at a Women's Knowledge Hub session not too long ago, and the young woman talked about her and her partner having to go to San Francisco 150 times to talk to an investor. And the only thing that they wanted to know, finally, they let her know that that's what they wanted to know, is whether she was in a relationship with her partner. And that was what they were concentrating on. Meetings are often needed with investors. That doesn't fit very well in a family, for a woman with a family. Business is not a 9-to-5 job. There's pressures for a woman to carry on her business because of that. There's family pressures, there's social and cultural norms that may discourage what is needed to grow a strong business. Most of that is based on patriarchal systems. Now, more than ever in 2021, because of the worldwide pandemic, patriarchal norms, structures, and practices replicate themselves and strengthen themselves in different forms and dimensions, from household to workplace oppressions and to women-owned businesses. Why and how? Well, women's businesses are newer and smaller and less well-financed, more vulnerable than those owned by men generally. Women represent only 16% of small and medium-sized enterprises with one or more employees, but account for 38% of self-employed Canadians. Nationwide, 61% of women founders reported losing contracts, their customers and clients, due to COVID. Many women found themselves ineligible for government supports that were primarily set up with large corporations in mind. As COVID hit, I'll tell you a little bit about Paro for a couple of minutes, and how we work with Alterna. Paro surveyed women weekly once COVID hit, and we realized the impact it was having with the women we were serving and working with. And so we did these surveys weekly, and we sent the results to government and funders. We wanted to make sure that government heard women's voices. And we knew this was really important. And luckily, government did respond finally with putting out money that was a little bit more suitable for women, at least some of their businesses. PARO received some funding for training and equipment, and we added this money. We added some money ourselves for PPE, and we call that our biz growth funding. And it's taken us all year working on this day and night to get this money out, because it has to be spent by March 31st. And there's a lot of work involved in doing this, but it was crucial to the survival of many of the businesses that we worked with. Since COVID hit, before COVID, we used to say PARO drove around Ontario giving women money and training and support. And now we say PARO zooms around Ontario giving women money and support. But, you know, it's meant that we can serve many more women, and we are now working all across Ontario, and Alterna has been a big piece of that, because we're leaning on the CFDCs as loan investors, social finance investors. Alterna came on board to work in areas where the CFDCs are not our partners. So Alterna now is a very significant partner, social finance investor in the PARO Circle loan. We've continued to be able to develop circles in areas where we didn't have them before, mostly because of our partnership with Alterna. So I'm very thankful for that. We've also added a business development 101 type online self-learning system, and we developed that through a partnership with Go Forth Institute. So this is a significant part of our service as well. Also our circles, our peer lending circles, the 170 plus peer lending circles that we have throughout Ontario, they provide a very important kind of support for women, peer support, networking, and friendship during a crisis, and also to celebrate when there's success. Very important to our well-being. PARO provided training and counseling around how to pivot and reimagine businesses. We did one large event in November. We're doing another one on May 6th. Try to attend. Mary Walsh is the Canadian comedian, and Sunshine Tenasco, an entrepreneur, a young Indigenous woman. They are the keynote speakers. We're also going to provide awards. I know Alterna Savings is sponsoring one of the awards. We'll give out 11 awards in the evening, and during the daytime is learning time, pop-up market time, purse auction time, lots of fun and lots of learning, and also lots of time to shine the showcase on wonderful women entrepreneurs. So we continue to provide all that support that, in addition to helping women fill out their applications for funding, which is crucial to let them know what kind of funding is available. But let's go back to where we are and why it's really important to have these discussions. There's a feminism of poverty happening, and it's increasing at an alarming rate given COVID-19 restrictions, and therefore there are increasing numbers of women and children who are falling below the poverty line. We have to act. Women are still sharing the larger load of child and elder care and household duties, and this is increasing because of children being in and out of school and daycare. Also, governments have trended towards supporting and scaling up of women's businesses, especially those employees in the tech center, and also supporting organizations who have not traditionally supported women entrepreneurs well in the past. Government needs to change their direction now and put equal support, or maybe greater support, if we're not going to go backwards, to the 90% of women entrepreneurs, not the top 10 or the top 2%. So for many systemic reasons, including the responsibilities at home, women often in their economic activities are sporadic and sometimes work in an informal way. And that gives extra challenges to fitting the criteria for government funding and support. So now I know I'm probably getting really short on my time, so I'll go through this quickly, but it's very important. I have hope that we can do something about this together. It's important that you contact your local MPs and your MPPs and the ministers you know of, be strategic and recommend that the government pivot to help women entrepreneurs from going backwards any further because of COVID-19. Governments need to pivot. They need to reimagine how they're doing things. They need to prioritize and help the 90% of women businesses and not concentrate and not continue to put huge resources into the top 10. The governments also need to prioritize support for all the organizations who have years of proven experience and success in supporting diverse women, and recognize and support and celebrate that diversity, the unique differences of their needs, including women living in rural and remote communities, Black women, Indigenous women, women with disabilities, senior women. Everyone needs to recognize that there are differences in the kind of support that it takes time to build that experience and expertise in how to serve. We need to advocate and support diverse leadership, include women, include diverse women. Diverse leadership leads to better economic, social, and environmental outcomes. There's much research that can back that up. We need to develop programs to support women's leadership in strategic positions like corporate boards, politics at all levels, and for women entrepreneurs and organizations that support diversity in women's entrepreneurship. We need to advocate strongly for universal, affordable, accessible, and quality childcare. We need to do this by speaking to political leaders and in public forums, putting out surveys and results of surveys, etc., to support changes in areas such as child and elder care. Shift workers, for example, need 24/7 childcare. So do entrepreneurs, especially in rural and remote communities, women working in the health sector. We need to advocate for change in the workplace. There needs to be more flexibility to support the needs of women, to cut down on travel, to support women's responsibilities at home, and for strong policies to support parental leave. We need to address the biases and misconceptions about Black and Indigenous women entrepreneurs. These misconceptions add an additional layer of challenges when trying to access resources, investment, and training that meets their particular needs. And almost to the end here, we need to push for supplier diversity policies with big corporations, all levels of government. Don't take lip service, demand action, ask how women can participate and what do they need in place to get on the list. We need to be conscious shoppers to support local and diverse women's businesses. And last but not least, we need to call out racism, sexism, and ageism. Be courageous. Know you have what it takes to be successful women entrepreneurs. Know that together, we are here together to support each other. In closing, thank you for listening. COVID-19 means we have to take bold action quickly together. Rosemary Brown said, until all of us have made it, none of us have made it. Or in Newfoundland, where I was born, all boats rise with the tide. I stand strong with all of you. So thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Rosalind. This is so encouraging. encouraging. I'm so proud that you spoke about courage and the things that we as women can stand up and demand to receive. I do know there's progress, that things are still ongoing, but we just have to fight the good fight. So thank you for that. I think you would share a bit more in our breakout room sessions, and that would be great. Our next speaker, and not our final speaker, but our third speaker, is Rosemary Powell. And just before Rosemary speak, I would like to say a few words about Rosemary. Rosemary is a passionate advocate for social, economic, and environmental justice. Throughout her career, she has advanced equitable approach to policy development and implementations at various levels of government as it relates to land use planning, infrastructure investment, and urban development. She has led for over 20 years from the grassroots up, managing and developing several innovative and impactful community programs and services to support underrepresented groups access to the labor market. Her community engagement and environmental advocacy work earned several awards for leadership and imagination. Rosemary is the executive director of the Toronto Community Benefit Network. TCBN, as it's called, is a community labor coalition of 120 organizations and groups which successfully initiated the Community Benefits Agreement for the Eglinton Crosstown and Finch West LRT transit projects, as well West Park Healthcare and Rexdale Casino Woodbine. In the process, Rosemary has built strong partnerships with community, labor, government, and industry partners to address systematic barriers and increase diversity, equity, and inclusion in the construction industry. Pretty awesome here, Rosemary. Welcome again, and over to you.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here with everyone today. I'm actually a proud member of Alterna Savings and an alumni of their micro loan program. They did support me in my entrepreneurship dream when I started up my worker cooperative back in 2016, big on green. So while it's no longer active, I've brought a lot of the values and objectives of that work into my own work with the TCBN. Jean was my representative at the time, so it's really great to be on this panel with her. So thank you very much for inviting me. Again, my name is Rosemary Powell, and I'm the Executive Director of the Toronto Community Benefits Network. Increasingly, community benefits agreements ask contractors to make commitments for equity hiring when they're building public infrastructure. The construction industry directly impacts on the economy in an intense way. You might not be aware, but in 2020, public sector infrastructure projects under development topped over $250 billion. And construction accounts for 14% of Canada's GDP. The industry supports more than 260,000 businesses, yet this is an industry that women entrepreneurs have not fully tapped into, much less Black and Brown women. More than 1 million Canadians are employed in construction, and every job in construction produces another 7 spin-off jobs in other sectors of the economy. Next slide, please. And so what TCBN is doing through our work is really to ensure that whenever major public infrastructure dollars are being spent, that local communities and people who have been historically removed from the construction industry are being able to get access to the jobs and opportunities that are being created. This gives you a little bit of a history about the TCBN. We're a relatively new organization, having just started in 2014, but we've built on a foundation of work that's been happening in communities all across Toronto to fight for social justice and equity in our society. Our values are built on equity, diversity, and inclusion. What we're looking for is employment equity for Black, Indigenous, racialized peoples, with a focus on women, youth, and newcomers who, through the statistics, demonstrate that within this construction industry, there is an incredible gap that we have an opportunity to fill. And this is what community benefits agreements are doing. Through our programs, we offer construction apprenticeships, professional, administrative, and technical jobs. We focus a lot also on social procurement, ensuring that whenever these opportunities are being created, women, social enterprises, Black entrepreneurs are able to get contracts, not just jobs, but contracts coming out of the opportunities. And we also focus on neighborhood and environmental improvements. Next slide, please. Now, the construction industry, like I explained, is pretty significant in Canada. When you think about the building of hospitals, schools, bridges, transit, it's heavily funded by taxpayer dollars by all three levels of government. And when we think about our rebuild after COVID, government is going to be doubling down on this investment of taxpayer dollars. But we see here that the industry is actually demanding more workers. They need more skilled workers. This is a report from the Ontario Construction Secretariat that shows that in 2019, the industry was already very concerned at 69% about the need for new skilled workers. So this is really an opportunity, next slide please, that the industry can tap into people from our local communities, including women who has been largely excluded from this industry. And my goal personally is to see more women and other underrepresented groups get a real chance at the jobs and opportunities in this industry. An industry that has been built on the foundation of patriarchy historically. I want women to know that regardless of their background, you can carve out a pathway into this industry. I certainly took a complex pathway to get there today myself. My own personal experience in Canada as a Black woman, immigrant, has been one characterized by struggle and systemic racism and discrimination, including gender discrimination. And despite this, I move on and I smile in silent resistance because my story is also one of resilience and self-empowerment and community support. Following in my mother's footsteps as a community organizer, I worked for 16 years in the community services sector, supporting youth and women to access the labor market through training and development, employment services, and entrepreneurship. But I learned clearly that in Montreal, where I actually came in my first time in Canada, I had already reached the ceiling and that there would be no more growth for me if I didn't venture into deeper waters. And this is where I came to Toronto. I continued with my work in Toronto and I moved progressively to more management opportunities. And then in 2016, I was tapped on the shoulder to consider an incredible opportunity to take on the role with the TCBN. And this was exciting because it was a continuation of work that I had already started in Jane and Fitch, working with labor. And here I am today. I am fully engaged in work that I am passionate about, working as a professional in the construction industry of all places, an industry that I would never have otherwise been exposed to, that I would never have dreamed of working in, ensuring that whenever infrastructure is being built, that the community has a voice at the table and can contribute meaningfully in driving the vision for what our neighborhoods ought to be built up to look like. Because at the end of the day, as people who live in these local neighborhoods, we're the ones who will continue to live with the infrastructure that is built, with the buildings, with the transit. We need to be at the table. And when you look at a city like Toronto, where you see the rich diversity Black and Indigenous and people of color. And when you see women being, more than 50% of the labor market, it just makes sense that an industry like this, that is so prosperous and competitive, that women will have a real opportunity there. Next slide, please. But as you can see, for women, there are real issues within the industry. There are gender roles and expectation for women that continues to be reinforced. There is a lack of awareness of a career in the trades for women. There is under promotion and under exposure to trades for young women. And I think it was Roseau who said, oftentimes patriarchy is reinforced by women, by our mothers and our grandmothers, and it's historic. And we have a lot of work to do to change this, and we are seeing change. But we continue to deal with the issues of unpaid work responsibilities that we have to compete with our time and our energy to do at home, even while trying to be impactful in the workplace as well. And when you even get into the workplace in this construction industry, we have reports of experiences of harassment and discrimination while on the job site. There's a lack of mentorship in this whole boys club that continues to persist. We see stigma in the trades by family, and we see a lot of misconceptions and misinformation about the trades getting out there. So that sense of pride and ownership that you take in the mastery of your trade gets diminished. Next slide, please. But what we are seeing, and the community benefits movement has been rising in Toronto. And, we are seeing the industry really look at how they can change internally. And as a community, we can be proud of having been a part of why this change is happening. And in 2020, with the Black Lives Matter movement, we also see more of a shift in the consciousness of the public about these issues of systemic discrimination, racism, and looking the industry, recognizing that they really have to make changes internally because it is no longer tolerable. And as we look to rebuild from COVID, we are looking for better. And so one of the things that I'm pretty proud to see in the industry just recently is a declaration of inclusive workplaces and community that came out in reaction to those issues experienced in 2020, including nooses that were found on construction sites, letting Black people, Black men and women know that they are not welcome in the industry. So this is a really good start. TCBN is working to change this in partnership with our stakeholders in the industry, with the unions and with the contractors, and we see that they're making real efforts, and we stand with them. This year, we are starting our first Building Diversity Awards and Recognition Program, and we're working in partnership with the industry to educate and to recognize those leaders in the industry, those client owners and contractors and unions who are making real changes as it relates to equity, diversity, and inclusion in the industry. And I'd like to share that with everyone and encourage you to participate. And if you see employers that are creating a change in this industry, please look at nominating them for an award. And know too that through this engagement that you're having in this construction industry, you too, as women, you have a place here. And it's going to be better going forward. And you could be a part of that change. Next slide, please. One of the changes that we're seeing, and one of the questions that were asked by me is how can we ensure that, this kind of commitment to supporting women, to equity, diversity, inclusion, is to make sure that we are pushing for policies at all levels of government that ensures that this intrinsic right is actually cemented in policies at the different levels of government, and also that it gets carried into the request for proposal or the procurement processes with these construction contractors. And the City of Toronto, we're pretty proud to say, have finally seen the light, and they signed or agreed to a community benefits framework for the City of Toronto that would ensure a minimum of 10% would get access to the jobs and opportunities whenever the city is spending on public infrastructure. And this is a good start that we hope to see grow year over year so that we can reach a level where we see a more accurate representation of the demographics that make up our city and that makes up our province and that makes up our Canada. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rosemary. Thank you for sharing all the hard work that you're doing in terms of, getting a place at the table to have those conversations in order that these jobs can come back to our communities in which where all these infrastructures are being developed. So thank you again for TCBN doing that. And hopefully when we get into our breakout room sessions, you'll have an opportunity to speak more broadly on those, work that's being done. So we're now gonna go into our breakout room sessions. Or lead in the breakout room. I wanna introduce you to our conversation catalyst, Nora. She'll be leading the breakout room and, providing that you can have some deep conversations around the information that was shared with our three speakers today. You can also, come in and share any ideas, any comments, any live or lived experience that you may have, or this could be a safe space where you could just be there and absorb or, take in all the information that is being put out. So now we're gonna split everyone up to the breakout room and then we'll have you come back to share your findings. Great. So everyone should be back from their breakout room sessions. I could go first from my breakout room session. Our discussion was centered around gender equity and how as women were able to overcome that. Based on one of the participant stated there, she's reading 2 books that covers that topic, and they're very good reads. She's placed that information in the chat, so which is really good. We also had a discussion around microaggression, around newcomers, especially women that are coming into the workplace or might be starting their business, and how to sort of mitigate some of those responses. And lastly, one of our other speakers, she spoke about reshaping and replanning her life after a loss of employment, and how she's felt and how she's now better equipped to move forward and pursue her future. So I want to thank my group for sharing those insights.
Awesome, thank you. So I can speak on behalf of our group. So we all sort of started off talking about our experiences, being in male-dominated spaces, whether it be work or other, and sort of also started to talk about how women often reinforce patriarchy in the family and in work and other spaces. So, and women can sometimes gatekeep opportunities for other women. So we talked about, sometimes it's needed to take a step back and give space for other women, especially younger women, we do see a lot of them reevaluating different stereotypes and different systems that are in place. As well, we talked about supporting all women in various opportunities, and trying to, also recognize women who've been doing the work for quite some time.
Thank you. And to our last group.
There was just 2 groups, Jean.
Okay, thank you. All right. So we're now going to be opening up the discussion with all of our panelists. We're going to have some questions that is directed to the group that would enable the rest of us to hear their perspectives and their insights. So this is to the panelists. So when we're thinking of, our first question would be, when we're thinking of deconstructing patriarchy in entrepreneurship, have you felt barriers as a female identified leader and entrepreneur? And how would you suggest to overcome some of those issues or barriers?
I could take a stab at it. I think throughout my presentation, I focused a lot on self-advocacy. Yes, I've encountered a lot of barriers as a woman of color. Barriers could be anywhere from not being taken seriously, being ignored, and being told to shut down your business. I remember having a CEO come, and he thought he was acting as my mentor. He came to the center, he saw the location, and he decided to support me with mentorship. And by the 3rd mentorship session, his advice was to close down the center and start doing programs at other locations with different organizations. And imagine if I had listened to him. So that's a huge thing, is that women think that these people have their best interests, and so you look up to them and you build that relationship with them. But then it's important to be able to decipher and filter out what information you're going to actually take it and apply it to your goals. I think that's one of the biggest things that I'll always kind of remember. Someone told me to actually shut down my business, and he's a big CEO, very, very well known in this industry. I think
there's some power in knowing yourself and knowing what you want to thrive for, then, right? And not letting someone else's thoughts or words sort of take over what you know intrinsically that you were planning on doing for yourself and for your future.
Exactly. I had to kind of have that in my head and build that self-confidence up, and I know what I want, and that's it. I'm gonna filter this out and go for it. So I think it goes back to my focus on self-advocacy, which is why it's so important to advocate for yourself, filter out these things, these voices that don't really have your best interest at heart.
Right.
I support absolutely what you're saying, Rosal. And for me, on the other hand, it's about collective organizing. So the self-advocacy is absolutely important. And we need to also look at organizing. Frederick Douglass, he said, power concedes nothing without a demand. And we, in order to be able to take our rightful places within, within these power structures, we have to make sure that we come together and support each other as women, and that we develop strategies together, we work together, build trust, and build allyship, and that we make the demand and ensure that we have a seat at the table. These are things that have to be ingrained in our policies. After all, we are the government. We elect our elected representatives and put them in power, and we have the power to vote. And not only that, if we voted and we didn't get what we wanted, we have the power to hold our elected representatives to account. So it never ends, and the struggle continues. Black people have been struggling for 100 years since, time immemorial, and we got to continue. So does women. There's been a long and hard struggle, and don't ever think that we can ever give up. What we need to do is to ensure that we have, we build a support system around us so that we can be resilient within the struggle.
Great, thank you. And Roslyn?
I would definitely agree with that. I know the one of our elders, actually sort of our in-house elder, she calls me part of the wolf pack. And I think that describes me very well. And I would recommend that to all women. You choose your support network. It's important that you have a support network. It takes time and energy and thoughtful thinking about who's part of that. But within your family, within your friends, in your work environment, that wolf pack is very, very important. They'll get you through the worst of times, but you have to do the same for them, right? That it's a give and take. And as women, I think we have to know that we have to do things together and recognize and celebrate our differences. And there's a difference in respecting difference and celebrating difference. And I think that that's the important piece that we have to get out to people in Canada, that, we need that diversity in leadership. We need that diversity in the workplace. We need that diversity as women entrepreneurs. It's crucial to how we move forward as a country and as a community of women. So yes, be part of my wolf pack.
Right.
Follow your intuition. I respect your own experience and the power that you have within to make decisions and
Right. I just want to be respectful of time. We're now at the 2:31 mark. I just have one final question for the group. And the question is around, what are you doing to address your mental health or any support? Is there any additional resources out there for us as women that we can, tap into and use? And also, can we use those for our business careers as well? So Roslyn, would you like to tackle that one?
I think we should just do it rapid fire, really quick.
Yeah, I don't advocate as being a really, really good at that. I try hard. I try to get up and move from my computer. I try to eat healthy. I try to get a bit of exercise, but I'm not good at it. So I think there might be better commentators.
I think turning social media notifications off definitely has been super helpful.
Great. Rosemary?
For me, it's really, for me, it was a doubling down on family. And, 2020 really taught me that I wanted to have my family closer, and my daughter, she's my life. And we do just about everything together. And I've gotten to know her even better since we had to be closed off and locked out together over the last year. So I appreciate her so much more. And I'm hoping that she's appreciating me a lot more as well.
Well, thank you so much for sharing. I want to thank all the panelists today for all the thought-provoking insights, your perspectives, and ideas of leading us to think on the many issues that impact women and how we can rise and thrive from being a woman and being supported in terms of leadership and through our business careers. I want to say a quick quote, and this quote is from the notorious RBG. Woman belongs every place where decisions are being made. So I think this is a really important quote, and I think it covers our discussion today. So I really want to share that really quickly. I want to thank the conversation catalysts, Nora, Alia, and myself for leading those breakout room groups. I want to thank all the participants who took time out of their day today to come in and spend some time and listen to all this great, important information that was shared. Finally, I want to thank my colleagues, Alia, Susan, Alicia, for all the support that they gave today in bringing this event. And I want to thank Alterna Savings as well for helping us to put this event on, and so we can have a discussion around with like-minded women. And I want to thank everyone. Sorry that there wasn't enough time for us to really have this discussion. I know we need more than an hour and a half, but thank you again. Have a great day. Take care, everyone.